The massive Sahara dust cloud is now moving across the United States and is turning skies strange colors. This is by Scott Denning from The Conversation. This hot desert wind is carrying a massive cloud of Saharan dust into the southern United States via the Caribbean this week. Dust plumes from the Sahara routinely blow westward across the Atlantic this time of year, but this event is a doozy, by some measures the biggest in decades. Some say it's the largest dust storm in the past 50 years. And a second plume appears to be forming about a week behind this big one across the southeastern U.S. from the Gulf Coast of the Carolinas and potentially as far north as Indianapolis and Cincinnati. Dust effects will likely be visible in the coming days. Trillions of dust grains will reflect sunlight in every direction, creating milky white skies. The dusty haze reflects some sunshine back to space, cooling the surface a bit where the plume is the thickest. Longer waves of red and orange light tend to penetrate the dusty haze, so sunrises and sunsets are likely to be especially beautiful. On the downside, where the plume mingles with showers or thunderstorms, downdrafts may carry desert dust to Earth's surface. This will impair air quality and could trigger allergic reactions and asthma attacks. The more dust reaches an area, the more pronounced the effects will be, of course. For atmospheric scientists, this huge dust plume is more than a cool event. It also shows how the Earth's physical geography creates weather and climate patterns, and here's what causes these plumes to form. Earth's rotation and uneven heating create climate zones. Our planet's climate and weather systems start with motion in the atmosphere, swaths of air rising and falling or moving horizontally from high pressure areas to low pressure areas. Earth's rotation and the fact that the planet is warmer near the equator than the poles create circulation patterns in the atmosphere. The higher latitudes towards the poles, wind blows faster and move from west to east. Near the equator, winds blow more slowly and travel from east to west. And this is how this Sahara dust is traveling from over Africa, west across the Atlantic Ocean, into the Caribbean and up towards the United States. These are the trade winds that blew ships towards the New World during the age of exploration. In the deep tropics, rising air expands and cools. The water vapor in it condenses and falls, producing rainforests that are most productive ecosystems on the planet in the Amazon, the Congo, parts of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. In the subtropics of both hemispheres, sinking air compresses and warms, vaporizing every little wisp of cloud to produce the world's rigid regions, the arid regions, the Gobi Desert, the Atacama, Sonoran, Namib, and Australian deserts, the largest desert in the belt of searing aridity that stretches across the Sahara, and the Arabian Peninsula and reaches deep into Central Asia. This is where transatlantic dust plumes form. Wavy winds and lofty dust. The Sahara is so hot and dry that North Africa is hotter than the equator at this time of year. Although it lies thousands of miles farther north, this is the only place on the planet where the gradient of hot to cold runs backwards from the subtropics to the equator. In the space of 1,000 miles, from the Atlantic coast of Ghana to the deep interior of Mali, the landscape changes from dripping jungle to searing sand. Evaporation keeps the rainforest cooler than the deserts to the north. This reversed thermal gradient affects the predominant trade winds, causing them to undulate back and forth and up and down in gigantic westerly waves from June through October. The combination of a huge expanse of roasted land and an upside-down thermal pattern allows billows of high wind to free sand and dust from the Sahara's hot surface, lofting it high on buoyant thermals and carrying it far to the west. And as the air acquires a heavier and heavier burden of dust, it becomes even more erosive, sandblasting the arid landscape even more thoroughly. The largest dust plumes were ejected westward across the tropical Atlantic. Much of this desert dust is deposited in the ocean, but some of it does reach the Americas. Fertilizing rainforests and short-circuiting hurricanes. Over the ocean, African easterly waves gobble up water vapor from the warm sea surface and can blow up into tropical storms. Nearly all Atlantic hurricanes start out as undulating breezes over the reversed thermal regime of West Africa. Big Saharan dust plumes interfere with the formation of Atlantic hurricanes in at least three ways. First, their very dry air dilutes the humidity whose condensation forms the fuel of the tropical storms. The second, upper-level winds that carry these plumes blow more strongly than winds at the surface. This variation in wind speed, known as wind shear, blows the tops off the thunderstorms before they can become organized into bigger systems. Third, dust plumes reflect and scatter tropical sunlight, reducing the tropical sun's evaporating power and starving storms of their moisture. For all of these reasons, tropical depressions, storms, and hurricanes are less likely when big Saharan dust plumes are active over the Atlantic, just as we have now. That's good news for coastal residents in the U.S., but bad news for the surfers, since tropical storms are the main generators of waves in the summer. The dust plumes provide their benefits. Desert dust is an important source of nutrients for downwind ecosystems, both in the ocean and on land. Soluble iron in the dust helps some species of algae in surface waters to thrive. These tiny organisms form the foundation of food webs that sustain thousands of other species. The dust also contains phosphorus, which is critical to the growth of tropical forests in Central and South America. These rich ecosystems get some phosphorus by dissolving local rocks at their roots, but need more, which they receive from desert dust wafted thousands of miles westward by African easterly waves. If you're in an area affected by a dust plume, don't forget to look up. You may see odd-looking skies or stunning sunsets created by interlocking chains of cause and effect that link vast regions on both sides of the tropical Atlantic and sweep us into the drama of our spinning planet. This is by Scott Denning. He's the professor of atmospheric science, Colorado State University, and this was republished from the conversation of the Creative Commons, and it's on Science Alert. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.